Hello and welcome back to the channel and another episode of Prolific People. I'm Tom Bolan and today we're joined by Ben Richards, and thank you very much for joining us again on the channel. We've got a great one for you today. We're going to be talking property development, entrepreneurship and lots of other great stuff. So welcome, Ben.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. And it's quite funny because we do a lot of these recordings on a Sunday, and I find it quite well humbling that a lot of people agree to doing these on a Sunday. So thanks for taking the time to join us and tell us about your story.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. As I was saying, my little boy is sort of down napping generally at this time, so it's actually a perfect time to get some work done or do something productive.
Right. Well, we'll try squeeze it in before he wakes up again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you want to tell our viewers who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Ben Richards. I run a series of businesses, all in the sort of property industry, one being an architectural practice, which I've been running for the last 6 years, a company called XP Property, which is a property development business in London and the home counties. 3 years ago, we set up another sort of side business called XP Surveys, which is a measured building and topographical survey business. And we've got a pipeline of £40 million worth of property that we're going to be delivering over the next sort of 24 months. It's been a busy, crazy 5 years with all of that going on. From a sort of development perspective, we've raised £14 million worth of equity for our schemes, £41 million worth of debt with various kind of lenders. And we've built a social housing portfolio in that time of 114 beds, which is an 8-figure business. You know, we've built that to over £20 million. And we've done that in 3 years. So yeah, it's been a busy 6 years, but my history was kind of always in the property industry with architecture and construction.
Yeah, I mean, that's very impressive to do that in a fairly short period of time. And those numbers are very impressive, and not a lot
Thank
of
you.
people can reach those numbers. I thought I
Certainly
was
not
doing
been
well, but
easy.
then I heard your numbers. So, but let's begin because we'll talk about the property business and property development later on. Some fantastic figures we can go into a bit deeper later on. But let's get back to how you started, because you did go the traditional route of education, like most of us do, and you went to university, and you came out of it not really working in that area. So do you want to tell us about that?
In the normal sense, yeah. A lot of people sort of find this intriguing. But yeah, I studied architectural engineering at Cardiff Uni, did a master's, 4 years master's, absolutely loved it, to be honest. It was very much up my street. But as soon as I graduated, I took a slight detour and actually played poker for a living. So online poker, pretty much as soon as I finished studies, for 12 months thereafter, played online poker from 6 in the evening until whatever time it finished. Sometime, the later it went in the morning, the more money I'd be winning. So there were 2 occasions where I was up till 7:30 in the morning. So a good 13.5 hour shift in front of the computer clicking buttons. But, that was effectively the start of my property journey as well, because I managed to win enough money to put down a deposit for my first buy-to-let property at that time. So yeah, it was an interesting year. It certainly wasn't sustainable for me. I'm very much more a people person. So clicking buttons in front of a computer and that being it really wasn't for me. I want to be far more productive than that. So, I wanted to get a proper job. I put all that time into university, getting this degree. I felt like it was kind of the right thing to do to actually put it into practice.
Yeah,
But yeah, weird detour.
Well, yeah, because I finished uni and I did TV production, and a lot of people in my class, my year, they finished uni and went to work at McDonald's or
Oh,
in retail or something. And you think
yeah.
you've just spent all of that money at uni getting a degree, you don't actually go on to get a career out of it, but you went and made a career book in something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, was it 30 grand's worth of debt or whatever it was that I
Yeah.
left uni with? But it wasn't just a kind of a blasé kind of, right, I'm going to go off and do this now. I'd been playing poker for a long time. It kind of I didn't really live university life like a student because I had poker, and every now and again I'd win $1,000 or $2,000 here, kind of like playing the game. And I, between my third and fourth year, decided to, during that summer, see if I could make it for as a living. So I was like, right, what does a graduate engineer get? 24 grand a year salary. I was like, right, if I can make £2,000 a month over this summer, I deem it a worthy, route after uni. So yeah, made, I think, 4.5 grand in the 2 months between my third and fourth year at uni. I was like, okay, that's it. Decision made. As soon as I graduate, I'm going to give this a go and see where it takes me.
Yeah, great. And it's
Yeah.
taken you quite far. It was a good move.
Yeah, it was. It was probably the most money I've ever made in sort of a year, because it's all tax free, and you don't have to worry about paying the tax man from income tax perspective and all that sort of stuff. So the reality was that I was sort of coming straight out of uni and pretty much straight into a 70-80 grand salary. It was the sort of the equivalent. So yeah, it was great financially. It just wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted. Like I say, I'm way more productive. I want to be more productive. I like working with people. It was completely missing that. But I like to dabble still every now and again when I can.
We're not endorsing gambling.
We are not. No. But this is the weird thing. Like, if you take me into a casino, I've got no interest in playing blackjack, no interest in playing roulette. What I love about poker, and it's actually so transferable with property, is the strategy, the maths behind it, the risk analysis, the kind of understanding people and reading people and finding a win-win situation and using the resources you have to gather more and all of that thing. I actually did a talk in Ealing Property Meet last year where I had a picture of a house and all these things that I've just mentioned, and then I swapped the photo for poker, and I was like, look, these are pretty much, I could go through this list and be talking about either poker or property, because the skill set, the mindset, the kind of the strategy behind them both is very similar. And that's kind of what I like about it, the strategy more so than the gambling. But you're right, my mum and dad, when I told them that I was going to play poker for a living, didn't really go down too well.
So let's move on to what you are doing today and the businesses that you've created. We spoke earlier and kind of getting to the point where there are a lot of people out there saying property is passive and it's cash flowing every month, but there are a lot of instances where this isn't true. And I want to get the point across on this channel that there are a lot of people kind of being misconceived by those points. So you've actually set up another business that you consider as your cash flowing business. Do you want to tell us about that?
Correct. Yeah. So I did work in the corporate life. So 4 years working at an architectural practice, and then 3 years after that, I went to work for the Berkeley Group in London. So again, sort of great. Throwing myself into massive infrastructure projects, big property developments, 955 units, 8-year programs, really sort of big stuff. And that was all really good experience. But I knew that I wanted to kind of start my own business, and I wanted to always kind of build my own thing. And I think sort of going into it, I wanted to make sure that I was building a business that could work without me, that generated that sort of that cash flow monthly, as opposed to the property development side of stuff, which I know now certainly that it's very cyclical, very lumpy. You might go 2.5, 3 years on a project without seeing any profit at all or any money really back, into your business. So that really wasn't sustainable. It was a sort of not a dream of mine, but something I sort of always knew I would do. And I think when I worked for my small architectural practice after the poker, I kept getting frustrated with my bosses because I wanted them to do more. Like, why aren't you out this networking event? Why aren't you doing this? And it was almost like, I don't want to say ego, but I almost wanted to prove to them or prove to myself that it could be done a different way, and you could build an architectural business that was sustainable, that could work without you, that was profitable and still created amazing work. And I do feel like that's what we've built. So the company's called Aura Architecture and Interiors. We work in London and the home counties, and we work with private clients and developers. Our split is kind of 60-40 in that regard, but we only do residential stuff. We like creating homes, and that's what I set the business up for. And having a cash flowing business that is a service based business, I would actually recommend that to anyone going into the property development space, to have a baseline of income, something to pay your bills, a business of some kind that is a service-based business that is kind of quick cash, because property development is not quick cash.
It's not like you're doing something like setting up a cafe, for example. The business that you've set up, they're all kind of complementing one another. And you can use those experiences to help grow the other side of the business as well, right?
Absolutely. That was, we call it our ecosystem. We've got, it's not just, so I've mentioned, if you look at kind of the flow through a property development, for example, or any construction work, it always starts with a survey. What property are we dealing with? We need existing floor plans, elevation sections. That's effectively why we started XP Surveys. That's the front end of the ecosystem. Then it goes into the sausage factory of Aura architecture to design it. XP Property will deliver it, and then actually my business partner has another company with his brother, which is more property management and sort of HMO portfolio building, called Central Suites. So we've got kind of survey, design, deliver, and then manage in that whole ecosystem. So they all feed into each other, and setting up XP Surveys with a baseline of 3 or 4 projects a month from Aura kind of gave that business that kind of baseline of work, knowing that the one person that we employed at the very start, his salary and his overheads were all paid by one of my other businesses. So it's not without its difficulties, but having that integration and that ecosystem, it's, I think, a sensible way of building businesses.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's that kind of group structure that you've created. And you see a lot of businesses and business owners, they work day to day in that one business. And although maybe very successful, they might be able to go on and do even more for the greater of the business and for themselves, of earning more profit in the end of it. But they don't seem to see that they could do more. They just like to be within that business and stay there. And think something we're going to touch on later is how you build a business to sell, because that's the way you need to look at it going into the business, right? Because if you ever wanted to sell the business and you're the sole operator of that business, it would be harder to sell.
Yeah, we've actually looked at sort of mergers and acquisitions for XP Surveys with a view to growing that faster. And we've spoken to, 3 or 4 kind of surveying practices that are on businessesforsale.com. They're looking to jump ship. And the reality is, though, they may have been building that business for 15 years.
Yeah.
But it's them. It's that sole surveyor. They want to retire. They've worked really hard for the last 15 years. And it's incredibly sad for, myself and Jack being on a call with them to say, look, your business really isn't worth that much, because once you take you out of it, you're not really left with a bit of goodwill that you've got with some of your clients and a bit of kit. You've not really built an online presence. You don't really have any sales funnels. Your marketing is terrible. Your website doesn't look very good. And that's, it's not a very nice thing to say, but that's the reality. If you're not thinking about these things when you're setting up a business, when it comes to the exit for you, you've not built those foundations. You've not built a business that is autonomous and kind of can work without you, which is really where I set up Aura to do. Like my almost sort of golden rule, or the thing I was aiming for the most was, how do I relinquish myself from this business as fast as I can? And it took 3.5 years really to be in a point where I could employ a design and operations director. They manage the day-to-day. The team is now 12 plus strong. And from day one, I was very much focused on content marketing, raise my online profile. When you type in residential architects into Google, how many architecture practices are there in the UK? Probably thousands, tens of thousands, if not. We range somewhere between 4th and 9th on the first page of Google when you type in residential architects into Google. We've worked really hard on that kind of online presence, and I don't have to go out to generate leads for that business. And it's not always that easy, obviously, kind of, getting the sales process right and converting clients and all, that whole business of front end is very, very difficult, and it's very, very fickle sometimes. But fundamentally, that business has been grown from content marketing and building its online presence. People think we're way bigger than we are. We're 12 strong, like I say, you know, started in Clapham, and it's been grown from nothing effectively. So yeah, super proud of where it is, but it's nice to have that kind of cash flowing business.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And it's like that thing where you come into the business to build it up, to get it to a point where it can be systemized, and then you can take a step out and then grow, build another business, and just keep going like that. But you also mentioned Jack, your business partner. I find this really interesting because a lot of property investors, or especially the guys on YouTube, right, say that you can grow a property portfolio by investor cash and JV partners, which you do, but you also have a business partner, which I find I think it's fantastic that you do that because you can just bounce ideas off each other. You can keep each other
Accountable.
accountable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, I completely agree. I was sort of saying with Aura, that is still 100% my ownership, and it's been grown by myself, and it's very lonely. Been a very, very lonely journey. And the difference between having Jack in XP Property and sharing the load, sharing ideas, having someone to just bounce ideas around with, is just ridiculous. I couldn't imagine kind of doing it again, or without someone else. And luckily, Jack and I get on, extremely well. I feel very sort of fortunate and lucky to have found someone like Jack to kind of partner up with. And I think in the first instance, and I see it quite a lot with some other people that are, do similarly have sort of business partners where they're almost following each other around and almost doing the same thing. We were very clear after probably like 18 months of working together that, you have a certain skill set, I have a certain skill set, our goals and aspirations, and, we're both heading in the same direction. But our business is very, very structured now, whereby he's the land and acquisition side of the business. That's his strengths. He structures the funding. He finds the opportunities. Effectively, as soon as we get to pick up the keys, it moves over to my side of the business, and that's the design and the delivery. So it's kind of a divide and conquer type thing. But we both dip into each piece of, or each side of the business. But our roles are very clearly defined, and we've now got a team beneath us. And I think it is probably worth sort of touching on, like, a business partner is great, but you kind of need to decide very early on, I think, what type of business you want to build. Do you want a lifestyle business where it is just you and you're doing project by project and you're bringing in investors, and that's works for a lot of people? For us, we wanted to build a business. It was, this is going to be in 20 years time, we're going to be a development business that has a team that has grown in scale every year. And that's a decision you do need to think about very early on. And we would have set up things differently depending on which one we want to do. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a lifestyle business. Sometimes I wish I did have more of a lifestyle business, as opposed to the craziness of 25 staff across the various ecosystem that we've got, managing all of those people, sort of having more SPVs than I can fit on a screen. It's starting to grow and grow and grow. And you just, the bigger you get, the bigger the problem. But both Jack and I love that. I think, we're both relatively young. Sadly, he's got 6 years on me, but, we're both ambitious, and we want to sort of keep things going and build a business of a certain scale, rather than necessarily a lifestyle business. And you do have to make that decision early on, I think.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what you do in the coming years, because what you've achieved in such a short time. And then
I'm hoping we slow down, to be honest. But we'll see.
Well, if you can afford to, then why not? But I mean, you always need targets to keep hitting, right? Or else you'll just get bored. I'm sure if you should slow down for 6 months, and then you just be going back at it again, probably.
Yeah, I don't think I could sort of stop. I've even said this, during even retirement, I think I'd still be doing what I'm doing. And my wife's asked me in the past, like, so if you won the lottery, what would you do? I'd be doing what I'm doing now. I'd be doing property. I'd be building businesses, and I love it.
Yeah. People say, like, if they win the lottery, they'd go buy this house, buy this car, go on this holiday. And if I'd just put it all in property and business. I'd be broke, but it'd be all invested.
Yeah.
So let's move on about the property development side of things. We spoke about this earlier because a lot of people say property is passive. Is it passive?
No, I mean it isn't. I mean you've got to put in a lot of work to kind of get some recurring income in. I do agree that if you built a portfolio and you've got a team in front of you or behind you, it can be relatively passive, but you still got to put the effort in up front. You've still got to take the risk. You've still got to make the quick decisions and fight fires and all that sort of stuff. And I don't think I don't think anything is completely passive. You've still got to input to it. You've still got to build it to a certain size, to be as passive as it possibly can be.
Yeah.
But from a property investment perspective, I'd say that can be way more passive than property development. Property development is a different ball game altogether. And I'm actually we're doing a speed mentoring session with the Young Architects and Developer Alliance at the London Build Expo in a couple of weeks. And I've visited some of their events before, and everyone that I speak to and I say, oh, I've got an architecture practice, I've got a development practice. Oh my God, yeah, that's really what I want to do. I want to jump ship from having clients and be my own client and do my own developments. And I sort of say, are you ready for that? Are you genuinely ready to take on that risk, to be faced with as many changes and pivots and fighting fires as there is in the space? Because it is not easy. And I think there are, like you say, a lot of people on YouTube, a lot of people with an educational platform that they're trying to drive sales to, and the message is that it's passive and you can go from zero to a millionaire within a year, and it's just not possible for the most part. You might get this one unicorn that does that, but we've been at this for 5 years. I can tell you it's a roller coaster, and we still aren't anywhere near where we want to be. We always have cash flow issues. It's a constant developer issue, just cash, because it's so lumpy. There's so many changes, and when you've got as many projects on the go as we do, it's very, very hard to juggle and spin all those plates. And it's I try to warn people when people say genuinely I want to jump ship and start doing developments of my own. I do heavily warn them that it's not as simple as it is made out on Homes Under the Hammer.
And you need cash behind you to get started. How do you go about raising finance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually not a big believer in that. Like we didn't start with a huge amount of cash ourselves. We had experience, and that was a big part in us being able to raise finance. Our first deal that we did together actually was a crowdfunding platform through a crowdfunding platform. So we raised 350 grand to do our first development. And that was a great learning curve for us, and actually helped us, I think, pull in a few external investment partners that we have worked with since. And it was a good stepping stone for us. But yes, you have to have some cash, and obviously the sort of size of projects that we're now working on, there might be 100 grand's worth of soft costs before we've even bought the property. So you've got to allow for that. You've got detailed design, architects' fees, engineers, surveyors, stamp duties, and exchange fees and things like that. But what we've done and what we try to do is de-risk things as much as we possibly can to reduce the amount of soft costs that we pay out. So countless projects where a normal exchange deposit might be 10%, but we've agreed £10,000 as opposed to, what would be £250,000 on some of these £2.5 million purchases that we're now doing. So, it's about being creative and trying to find a solution that works for you, that de-risks it for you. And we've done numerous ones like that, where it's a £5,000, £10,000, £25,000 deposit on exchange with a 12-month delayed completion to allow us to get planning permission, to allow us to find some added value in the site before then buying it. So, these sorts of creative structures and ways of doing things is typically how we buy well and de-risk our sites.
So something that you mentioned before at the start is that you've got £41 million worth of debt now.
Yeah, it's scary when you say it like that.
Yeah, right. But what I find interesting on that is that there's enough lenders out there that will be willing to give you that debt, because some lenders have restrictions on how much they will lend you. Have you ever had issues around that?
We haven't. I mean, within that 41 million, there's probably 12 to 15 different lenders. And we scour and use good brokers to try and find those lenders that are willing to lend on certain projects and give us as good a rate as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Some of that £41 million would have already been paid back. A lot of it will still be live. And from a lending perspective, we've never had anyone turn around and say, you've got too much debt with us in particular, or we're not willing to lend against this scheme, for example. So it's not to date been an issue.
Like you say, I think a good broker's key here, and to show that you have good credit history and that you have been servicing the previous debt. So it's in your favour to take on more debt.
Yeah, and I think also the lenders will want to see that track record, and more importantly, the trajectory that you've been on and are sort of going. So we didn't jump straight into £10 million developments. Our first development was £590,000 or something, in that level in terms of GDV, and we've done then every year kind of stepping stones from 600 grand GDV to 1.2 to 2.1 to 2.7. We're only now in the sort of space of doing £3 to £10 million GDV projects, and actually that was more, which I think is actually hopefully quite relevant, and one of the biggest messages that I'd like people to take away from our sort of 5 years of growing a property development business is we made a lot of mistakes in the first 3 years where we were doing too small a project. When we were looking at our overheads and our business, every project that we've done, we've not lost any money on any projects that we've done. Now, they've all been profitable, but the question is, have we spent 2.5 years on a project that doesn't spin the needle for our business? It may well be a profitable scheme, but if the amount of profit from that scheme doesn't turn the needle when you've got overheads and a team, and let's say your burn rate is £25,000 a month. Well, if that scheme only generates £80,000 of profit, it's not really going to help the business as much. We've now set a target of £400,000 net per project per year, and if our scheme doesn't achieve that, we don't do it, because we know that that's overarching in terms of our business, what's going to make our business sustainable. Because I mentioned cash flow issues earlier. If you don't think about the wider picture and business that you're trying to build, and just go into projects specifically that you're like, oh, this is a 20% profit on GDV project, oh, we'll do it. Okay, well, that's great. But what is the actual figure that's kicking back into your business over a 2-year time frame, for example? What's the IRR spread out over that year, as opposed to just the actual return over that 2-year period? Is it going to be worth it for your business to do that size of project? And we've realized that we now need to do bigger projects and fewer of them, instead of running around like headless chickens trying to do as many profitable deals as possible.
So just to wrap it up, we ask everyone who comes on the channel to give us the top 3 book recommendations. Have you got 3 for us?
Yeah. So we mentioned it earlier about building a business to sell. There is a book called Built to Sell, and I read that within the first 9 months of building my architecture practice. And that really did help pave the way to kind of relinquish myself from business as much as possible by putting systems in place, processes, and thinking about how to automate as much as possible, with the view to at some point exiting the business, and relinquishing myself from the business as fast as possible. That's one. Once you've started that and you start to put those systems in place, there's a great book called Scaling Up. And again, that's really how you kind of supercharge your growth as a business. And really, lots of tips and tricks about doing that. And then third of all, and I had to pick one of the numerous books that he has written, but Daniel Priestley, anything by Daniel Priestley, specifically one of his later books called 24 Assets. And that's all about building your digital online presence. And that has really helped us build our investor base. We've raised millions of pounds through our online profile, and having various sales funnels and things that kind of bring in leads and opportunities to your business. 24 Assets by Daniel Priestley.
Great. Well, I'll put the one on the list next, because I'm listening to Oversubscribed at the minute, and great author. So thank you very much. And Ben, thank you for taking the time today to join us and to have a chat. I really appreciate it. I know you're a very busy guy, so yeah, I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me, and yeah, look forward to seeing more of your YouTube videos come out, and yeah, I'm sure they'll pick up loads of traction very quickly.
I hope so, especially with you being on it, right? It's definitely going to pick up some traction now.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
So, guys, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure you got a lot of value out of that. Please comment down below what you can take from the video. And if there's anyone else that you want to see on the channel, please let us know. Appreciate you for spending the time with us today. Appreciate you for being a subscriber. And we'll see you again on the next one.